How's it going, YouTube? Yeah, Patmac here, and I am joined by two other mods. I got Mismag and Ted here. You guys want to say hi?
What's up, guys?
Hello, everybody.
And we are here to chat about TGR Tag Team. We're looking at the Illumise division for this one. I believe we already have the Volbeat video. Might by the time already be up on the YouTube channel by the time you're seeing this, but if it's not, then it's coming real soon. And we're just looking at power rankings. We're going to try to figure out which team we think is the strongest, which is the weakest, what we like, what we don't like, and whatnot. So before we start talking about teams, though, let's kind of talk a little bit about this this format, because this is a wild format. You can kind of see a little bit of the structure up on your screen right now. There are two coaches that are on the same team. They have 5 Pokemon that are their own Pokemon. Nobody else can use them. And then they have 3 Pokemon that are shared, and the shared Pokemon get to be Terra Captains. So we'll go through the season, and yeah, it's going to be a VGC or doubles rules and all that kind of stuff. So I'm pretty excited about it. What do you guys think about the format?
Definitely one of the more unique formats that I've seen so far in Gen 9. So really excited about it.
I am super pumped to try this out, man. It's like socks knocked off everything. This is gonna be great.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah, I'm pretty excited for it too. And I totally agree that it's very unique, Ted. Like, I have never seen anything like this out there for any other leagues. But that's kind of how we do it in TGR, you know? Like, we make new and interesting formats, and we let the people play the game, you know? So anyway, we're going to look at the teams in their draft order. We're not going to go based on what I think their rankings are. It's just draft order. We'll talk about the teams, and then at the end of it, I'll share my personal rankings that I put together before starting this video. And then, of course, I'll get Mismag's and Ted's reaction to it, and it'll be fun. One thing I will say is that I'm ordering my power rankings a little bit different than how I usually do power rankings. So usually I look at all the teams, and it's just who has the strongest to who has the weakest, and go in that order. I'm actually, for this one, only looking at the teams as though they're the Plusle team, there's the minimum team, and then collectively who I think has the best teams. So you can kind of see the graphic in front of you, right? There's like 5 spots for Plusle, 5 spots for minimum, and then 3 for our shared teams. So I'm only going to be ranking essentially 5 teams for Plusle, 5 for Minun, and then the top 3 overall squads altogether. So yeah, I don't know. I think it'll be pretty cool. And yeah, let's go ahead and dive right into it. So first team we have here is the Primordial Leviathans. And before we start chatting about the team, the very top left of each squad, it was their first individual pick, and then it went down the row until the last pick at the very bottom. But Miss Mac, go and give us your first thoughts on this team.
I actually really like this team as a whole. I think the Terra Captains are particularly unique. Normally in this format, I would think that, you try to get 3 Terra Captains that kind of sync up and like have some sort of intricate strategy, but they just really picked like some strong offensive hitters, and it seems like the coaches individually picked good support mons to support their offensive captains. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Like, they definitely have some really sweet options here. There's I think what I noticed is the like Plusle side has a very like solid Trick Room mode between like the Bronzor and the Rangaroo to get Trick Room set up, and then Sylveon and Volleybolt to do really well in it. But yeah, what do you think about the Minun team here, Ted?
For the minimum side, yeah, really interesting picks. Breloom, I think, awesome support Pokemon, Technician, Mach Punch, general stuff. Volcarona and the Vinion, or not Vinion, Vivian, there we go.
Mm-hmm.
Both provide similar options, Rage Powder, Tailwind, things like that. I really like the Reverum pick. I think it's a good steel type with Parting Shot. Overcoat and I believe Filter,
Mm-hmm.
both good abilities on it. And Chikaton, I don't really know much about it, but I think it's pretty good fake out Pokemon, decent low tier overall.
Yeah, definitely. I think the Ticket Tough pick is really sweet because it's a nice Eviolite user. Like, it doesn't have to compete with anything else on the team. And then, like you mentioned, it has Fake Out, which is really sweet. It's got, like, really good defenses. And, of course, like, Steel plus Fairy is really good typing. And then I think it has, like, some support options with, like, maybe Helping Hand. I'm not sure about Helping Hand. But I know it has T-Wave, which is really good, too, to help support the team. So are there any weaknesses that you guys notice about this team that you're kind of, like, feeling so-so about?
Yeah, I noticed that the Plusle team does not have I would say, the cleanest way to get up their Trick Room, despite having very good mode for it. They don't have any fake out or any redirection. It's all on the mine inside, but the mine inside doesn't have a Trick Room center, so it's quite interesting. It's almost like the three captains in the middle can like play fast or slow depending on which coach you pull for the week.
Mm-hmm. I almost want to see like the Bronzor and the Tinkatuff switch sides. Like, I feel like that might make both these teams a little bit stronger because then you get the Trick Room option for Minin, and then you get the Fake Out plus Trick Room option for Plusle.
I couldn't agree more. Although I will go on record and say that the captains are very good in Tailwind and also in Trick Room, and I think that kind of goes to the flexibility of their decision making for these coaches. So well done.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think both options, or like all the mons in the middle, are like really powerful. I think that's one of the things you mentioned, Mismag. Yeah. Okay, well, let's go ahead and start talking about our next team here. And this is the Spupa Supremacy. And yeah, Ted, go ahead and give us your first thoughts on the team here. Why don't you start with the Plusle side?
Okay, fellow Doza believer, I like it. So obviously the main focal point of the team is that Doza Gary combo, obviously really strong in VGC, in draft overall. So nice solid pickup. Staraptor, good flying type option. Provides the tailwind, other good utility options. Venomoth more the same thing. Has Rage Powder, Sleep Powder. I believe it gets Compound Eyes, I believe, for the Sleep Powder. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No,
And the
no such luck, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think it's the
okay.
Tinted Lens. I think is that what that one has.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
either way, I think Tinted Ledge is pretty good for, I think, resisting a few moves, super effective moves. I'm not sure how that works.
So Tinted Lens is the one where if it's not very effective, then it gets double damage. So it like kind of
Okay.
yeah, it gets rid of not very effective, and then like if it's 4 times resisted, then it's just like regularly not very effective. So it's more of like an offensive one, which like it has Quiver Dance, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. Dedenne doesn't get Fake Out, but has Nuzzle, like Charm, Baby Doll Eyes, more of the same thing. Standard Pikachu clone, you could say.
Definitely.
As for like the Terra Captains, I really like the Terra Flying King Gambit. I think it's, even though it's something that's really common currently in the current meta, I think it works pretty well for this team. As for like the other two, I'm not really a big fan of Slowbro, but it's a good defensive core option. Terra Grass is obviously a defensive Terra, but I think it really works well with the Slowbro.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely agree. And I like that they have their Terra Captains, I think, synergize really well together. So like Slowbro can set up Trick Room, and then of course King Gambit and Camerup are both really good in Trick Room. And one being, well, I guess Camerup is a little bit more of a mixed attacker. It's like special attack and regular attack are pretty close together, but it does have like I think Eruption is one of kind of the big selling points of Camerupt. And then King Gambit, of course, is obviously really slow but super bulky and hits so hard. So, Mismag, why don't you go and tell us about the mid side? What do you think about that team?
I have to say the mine inside, I think, best complements the 3 Terra Captains, specifically where they are, because they are very functionally Trick Room sweepers, and the only side of this that has Trick Room independent of their captains is the Minun side. Mimikyu is I would argue, near god tier Trick Room setter. It is very hard to stop Mimikyu from setting Trick Room with Disguise kind of eating your first hit. They also have Amoonguss there for redirection. They have Jolteon for the fast mode. And that's kind of where the like of this team stops for me. I am not a huge fan of Squawk ability in the general sense at all. I think it is a very bad Pokemon, but others are welcome to disagree. And I don't quite understand what Cyclizar is doing there, other than I guess providing like fast Shed Tail and having like a little bit of a regenerator sort of mode with Amoonguss. But I feel like it's not living up to its best potential there. But that's just my opinion.
Yeah, I can definitely kind of get behind that. I think like Cyclizar, just from a stat standpoint, it doesn't I don't know, it doesn't excite you, you know? Like it's fast, but that's kind of about it. And then of course the Shed Tail I think is an amazing option, but like I think on this team it's kind of tough to figure out what you want to Shed Tail into. If you only look at the Minun Pokemon, right? Like on the Minun side, like maybe you Shed Tail into like Mimikyu as your sweeper, like that could be kind of cool. If you include the Terra Captain, Shed Tail into King Gambit sounds so gross. Like, oh my god, how would you break through with the sub and then King Gambit behind sub, getting off like sword stances or something like that to get these super strong sucker punches or something like that? Sounds terrifying.
I can agree with that, but on the whole, I think it's a fine team. I might just refine those low tier picks just a bit.
Mm-hmm. One thing that is kind of cool that about Cyclizar is it also does get shift gear though. So maybe like some Rage Powder next to shift gear, Cyclizar could be used as more of like a breaking or cleaning option. But it does have that option to Shed Tail support, which is pretty sweet. Yeah, I think overall the team is really exciting. I feel like the Minun Pokemon support the shared mons more, and the Plusle Pokemon are more of like standalone than the Minun side.
I would definitely agree with that. Like the Plusle side can just kind of run Dozo for days and then throw any one of the Terra Captains on there for some backdoor offense, whereas they're not like directly like supporting them, you know, outside of like Venomoth having Rage Powder, really.
Yeah, I will say it's nice that both these teams did pick up some Intimidate support, which is like a really common option that you want to have in doubles matches. You know, being able to reduce and mitigate some damage is really nice. Of course, Mismag's not a huge fan of Squawkabilly, which I can totally get behind. That Pokemon is not too exciting, aside from the option that you get to use any of the 4 forms, which is kind of cool. But anyway, let's go and yeah. All right, anyway, let's go and start taking a look at our next team here. We have the Bella Tower Radiance. And actually for this one, let's go and talk about the Terra Captains before we start talking about Plusle or Minun. And Mismag, why don't you go and start us off?
Well, if you know anything about the Bell Tower Radiance, then you know Coach Lady Lilac often tends to draft pretty broken teams. So the Bella Tower Radiance drafting those 3 Terra Captains does not surprise me in the slightest. They picked up some really powerful hitters. Like, ground types are already pretty rare, like good ones anyway. So they got Garchomp, Terrifier can't be burned, Clear Amulet can't be intimidated. Like, you're square, just right there. You're just done. Like, you're not really stopping Garchomp that easily. And then you kind of round it off with Telepathy Gardevoir, which has a huge move pool for support. Terra Steel to help with its weak points, and then they pick up the 1-point Poltegeist, which I absolutely love, because Poltegeist got Trick Room this gen, and a few other support moves that I think make it a lot more viable than it's been in the past. So their Terra Captains are scary, like super frightening. Just the 3 of them, independent of whatever mons they've drafted, can pretty much be ran every week.
I did not know that Poltegeist got Trick Room. That is so cool. I feel like I just learned something new. That is so exciting. Because I was just looking at that mon as like, Shell Smash, Sweeper, hecka scary. But oh my god, it gets support options with like Trick Room. That yeah, that's so so cool. Okay, let's go and talk about the mid and sides. Ted, why don't you guys go and talk about that side?
Yeah, the meta side is interesting per se. Obviously, like the main points out here is like that Murkrow and Tinkaton, both good support Pokemon, but Tinkaton can just hit like a truck. With the fake out Gigaton Hammer, play rough, just name a few moves. Obviously, Murkrow, you're obviously standard Prankster user this generation. Tailwind, Quash, Thunder Wave, Rain Dance, a lot of good support moves that definitely that this team can take advantage of. Ceruledge is another good mon on the Minun side. Um, Paired up with the Murkrow, just to set up Tailwind and being able to hit a fast Bitter Blade or a fast bulk up is definitely beneficial for that side. Cryo and Delibird are interesting picks as well. Delibird is probably not coming, but I could definitely see the Cryo coming. Chilling Water, Freeze Dry, stuff like that. Overall, really interesting mind inside.
Yeah, I feel like Ceruledge really ties that team together. Because, like, if you take out Ceruledge, that team just gets absolutely wrecked by fire moves. But then you, like, add a Flash Firemon, and, now you got to be a little more scared about bringing those fire-type coverage attacks against the team. So I really like the Ceruledge pick. I think that it ties the team together, and then really helps with all the different support and speed control options from that side. But then you look over at the Plusle side, and oh my gosh, that Plusle side looks terrifying to me. Like, you get the speed control from Tailwind Kilowattrel. You get a super fast Pokemon with Meowscarada already, and some really nice fake out options with Toxicroak, Earthworm, with Earth Eater next to Garchomp, so it combos really nicely with that Pokemon. As well as being able to Shed Tail, which could be a really nice option to bring in some of the other Pokemon. And then Pyro, I think, is just kind of a solid fire type. It's fast. It hits like fairly hard on the special side, which I think you really want to have looking at that team, because there's three mons between Earthworm, Meowscarada, and Toxicroak that are a little more physical oriented, and especially with Garchomp, right? Like, when we look at this team, people are going to prep their physical defense against this Garchomp, and so being able to add a few more special attacking threats is really nice. But I think one thing you really got to consider with these teams is that these are only 8 Pokemon team, so like there's only 2 Pokemon that are going to get left on the bench anytime you're facing a matchup, and so being able to make the most out of all of the different options that you have, and using all of your Pokemon week in and week out is a little bit different from kind of normal draft league, where usually you're drafting somewhere around the like 9 to 11 or 12 10 11 or 12 Pokemon mark, and so there's a less of the like you can't use a Pokemon, or like drafting less usable Pokemon. You really got to get full use out of all your Pokemon each week. Yeah, I think this team is pretty cool. I like the different options that they have, and it should be really interesting to see what Lady Lilac and Bellatonin can do with this team. Okay, let's go and start talking about our next team here, and we have the Vaporwave Crashers. And let's go and talk about those shared Pokemon again. And Ted, why don't you get us started off with those?
Yeah, I think between all 3 shared Pokemon, I think Skeledirge is definitely that anchor. Obviously, Terrafire, good stab option for Torch Song, but Terra Grass is a good defensive option, resisting those water type attacks. You already resist electric type, but Grass is good for that as well. Takes away that weakness to ground as well, so lots of good options there. Pikachu is just Pikachu. That's all you have to say about it. Arboliva. I really like the Terra Water, especially for a 3-pointer, I believe, as well. It's really solid. So yeah, I definitely like Arboliva as a Terra captain.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's a nice option to have. And then Water, of course, gives it some more coverage too. Okay, let's go and talk about the Plusle side as well. And what do you think about this team, Mismag?
Alright, so I'm looking at the Plusle side, and I see a nice mini Rain mode with the Floatzel and the Klefki. I also see Rain kind of supporting Excalibur and Heracross, just making sure they're not as weak to fire damage. Really, I see Excalibur itself just being a bulky, physically oriented powerhouse. Heracross has some good setup moves, and then it's kind of nicely pulled together with some cheap but priority, nevertheless, Tailwind due to Gale Wings on the Fletchling. I like it. The only thing I will say that I am a little bit sort of iffy about is the fact that I'd say every mon on the Pulsar side is a physical attacker, almost outright, except for probably Klefki. But I think it's also tied together nicely with the fact that their 3 Terra Captains are traditionally special oriented, so it's a nice mix.
That's a really good point, actually. I don't think I noticed the mix between physical and special there. But picking up physical attackers when your shared mons are mostly special makes a ton of sense there. And I'll go and talk about the minion side of this matchup. And I think while the Plusle side has like more of some really powerful physical offense and some really scary mons, I feel like the minion side is a way more supportive. But of course, Mousehold can kind of do a little bit of everything between a 10-hit population bomb, which feels like no Pokemon is able to survive. I've been looking at that Pokemon, like looking at calcs for it, and like, how do you live 10-hit population bomb if you're not like resistant to normal? It just seems so insane. But then having the option to do like Friend Guard with Follow Me to allow maybe some of those shared mons, the Skeledirge and Arboliva, to get set up, or maybe get Trick Room set up with Misdreavus sounds kind of cool. Maybe you could even have the Scyther set up with like Swords Dance and Trailblaze or something along those lines. And then of course Corviknight is this like very, very, very defensive mon and super hard to KO, and especially if you add Lightning Rod from Pikachu, then the team looks a little bit stronger overall. But Ted, what do you think about the team in terms of weaknesses that you notice, or anything that you'd consider changing on it?
Yeah, I think overall, like on both sides, I think they cover each other's weaknesses pretty well. There are not really that many noticeable weaknesses. So yeah, I think I agree with you. Like overall, they each 5 Pokemon on per team covers each other's weaknesses really well.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, and let's go and take a look at our next team here. And this is the Pacific Palafins, which is the team that I'm coaching along with Brave. So yeah, it's pretty exciting. I'm so hyped for this team. I'm just gonna throw that in there before people start talking about it. But I think I'm gonna have a lot of fun with this team. But yeah, Miss Matt, go and talk about the shared Pokemon first, and then we'll look at each side.
Sure. I will talk about the shared Pokemon. Palmot's broken because, and I'll go on record saying this, Terra Electric Double Shock and you never lose your typing. Yeah, it's broken. It's really strong hitting, and it's the only Pokemon out of all the ones that are legal for this format that can actually do that. So nice steal you got there in Tier 4. That's what I have to say about your shared Pokemon. And then you kind of rounded it off real nicely with like a very strong special attacker in Lamora. Lamora hits really, really hard, has some great coverage. Despite sharing weaknesses with Palmot, I think it is actually nice that you kind of picked up a really fast physical hit and then a moderately fast special hit. And then Go-Go kind of just ties it all together, which I kind of like, being a bit slower but bulky, a lot of sustain through it, like Leech Seed. I think it gets Milk Drink, Horn Leech, that kind of stuff. So really well-rounded triple threat you got there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely pretty exciting. And then Ted, I'm gonna have you talk about the Plusle side of this group as well.
Okay. Yeah. I believe this is your site, Patmac.
It is.
I really like the Go Dingo pick. I think it works it synergizes really well with the Palmat and the Glamora, I believe. Obviously, Gothiango can hit really hard, make it rain, choice specs, things like that. But it can also be a good supportive option. It does get Thunder Wave, so you can get some good amount of speed control with that. Um, Cinderace, be that it may be, it's even though it's not the same as last generation, I think it's still pretty good in this format. Um, though Libra only activates once, I think Blaze is probably a little bit better in this format specifically. Sorry, hits pretty hard. Pyro Ball, U-turn, Zen Headbutt, just name a few moves. Bombardier, standard tailwind setter here. Rocky Payload is an interesting ability. Boosting those rock type moves. It's really good, especially on a flying type. Um, and I think Golduck is a really nice steal, especially in the lower tiers. Having Cloud9 to erase those weather teams is really nice. And then Haxorus, sorry, good dragon type. Um, has some good stab options, good move pool overall.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And then I'm going to come back to you, Mismag, for the Minin side of things. What do you think about the squad that Braves put together?
I like the squad that Braves put together. I think there are some really strong offensive pieces there. Like Dragapult is, it's Dragapult. Even without a Dynamax to abuse, it's still fast, still a very flexible offensive piece, and also comes with a good amount of support moves. I still think Dragon Darts is really broken. And then he's kind of rounded it off pretty nicely with like Braviary with some bulky tailwind support and also a lot of physical offense with Sheer Force. Houndoom is, I think, one of the better low tiers, especially for a fire type down there. And then like Bronzong and Vaporeon are kind of good supports. Like, you get some speed control in there. You get Levitate to help with your two Terra Captains that are weak to ground on their face. I like it. It's very well put together.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a really fun team to use. I'm definitely excited for it. Brave and I have been talking about a week 1 matchup, and it looks like it's going to be a ton of fun. All right, let's go and start looking at our next team here, and we have the Drunken Dragon Knights. And I'll go and start off this team, just looking at the Terra Captains. Obviously, Dragonite is freaking amazing. You add a Flying type Terra or normal Terra to that, being able to boost those extreme speed options, or being able to have Terra Blast to use as your flying stab. Because I believe that Dragonite lost dual wing beat this generation, where it used to have it before. So having that gives you just a really accurate stab option for your flying moves if you decide to go that route. And then Drifblim and Cloudsire, I think, are really nice support options. You get Drifblim to give you like an unburden speed boosting option, and then also have Tailwind to support a team. But then it also has a handful of other supportive options like Strength Sap and things like that. And then Cloudsire is just like super bulky, super slow Pokemon. So being able to have that Mon as a way to potentially haze out other threats like the Dondozo Tatsugiri option that we saw earlier. And then one option that I actually want to add for Drifblim that it got this generation that it did not previously have was Trick Room. So if you didn't know about Poltegeist, you know about that one now. And if you didn't know about Drifblim, now you know that Mon also gets Trick Room. So a couple of new Trick Room setters in our metagame here that look pretty exciting. But let's go and head over to you, Mismag, for the Plusle team. What do you think about that one?
Plusle team seems pretty standard. Like, they have the Indeedee Armarouge, which is the only legal way to get it, because Indeedee Female and Armarouge are the same amount of points. So unless one of them is made a Terra Captain, you can't actually have, I would say, the more useful Indeedee most of the time. But I actually think the Side Spam mode is actually more terrifying, because the male version of Indeedee is so much more offensive that you're just chucking damage upon damage at them. And he shored it up pretty nicely with the Morgrams. Prankster screen support is nice because Indeedee is relatively frail. Drifblim can also be kind of frail. So I like those options. Rotom is a good, I would say it's a good electric ice type. Bolt beam coverage is pretty hard to resist in general. And it can just be a bulky Mon with like Will-O-Wisp kind of support. And then I guess they just had you need a good low tier, so Dunsparce is fine. It's a pretty decent Eviolite user. Doesn't get Tailwind, I found that out the other day, but does get Hyper Drill, so watch out.
Yeah, definitely a scary option there. What do you think about the minion side of the squad here, Ted?
The main, looking at it, I think the main focus is definitely speed. Talonflame, obviously provides that priority Tailwind, priority Brave Bird. Is a good taunt option as well. Istratha has speed boost, which is the more common ability, but it does get Frisk, so you can get to see at the beginning of the battle those items on the other side. I think, yeah.
Yep. Yeah, definitely cool options.
Yeah. The what's this Pokemon's name? Medicham. There you go. Medicham. I think got a little bit buffed this generation as well. It gets a new move called Axe Kick, which is a little bit more accurate than High Jump Kick. And it also confuses the target as well, which is nice. The Fungus, great support option. Has Regenerator with Spore, Rage Powder. Has Clear Smog as well to counter those Lagiri teams. And the Cloth also has Regenerator, which is a nice option as well. Not as bulky as the Fungus, but it's a nice option to have. And then Shell Armor, I believe, is what gives it the +1 in attack, speed, and defense. No, I think special defense, which is a nice option as well if you want to run like Focus Sash on it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. I think what I'm excited for the mid side is the prospect of how Cloth and Medicham could potentially work together. Like maybe having like Bullet Punch on Medicham to set up like a weakness policy from Cloth, and like I don't know, this would be kind of tough to do, but if you could maybe get it below half and then trigger that Anger Shell, I think is the name of the ability, to get that like a mini shell smash, would be kind of sweet too. Or even just like skill swapping Pure Power over to Cloth and then stealing Regenerator to like swap out Medicham and then bring it back in for some more fake out support would be kind of cool on that side as well. But I think for me, when I look at this team, one of the things that I'm maybe a little concerned about is how Dragonite and Morgrem are going to work with the Psychic Terrain option. Now, obviously, like they have control over when Psychic Terrain is on the field and when it's not. But I think just from like a team building standpoint, you got to be a little careful because Dragonite loves to use that priority extreme speed. And then Morgrem, of course, loves those priority moves as well. And you can use screens with Morgrem, but then you wouldn't be able to use Fake Out, which is a really good option for it. And you wouldn't be able to use Parting Shot either, which is another really nice option. So I'm a little concerned about that side of it from their team, but I think that having access to it yourself and knowing that your opponent's not bringing it against you just means that you have a little bit more control over when it's going to be around. And so they still have that strong option. But that's definitely a concern I have for the team, kind of looking at it overall. Okay, so let's go and take a look at our next team here. We have the Green Witch Galarians. And Ted, why don't you talk about the shared Terra captains here? What do you think about the trio they decided to draft?
Yeah, first off, I think the Hydreigon is a really strong Terra captain. I would probably like to see Fire on it, but I think Terra Steel definitely works in the same way. Gets rid of the Fairy weakness immediately. Still weak to fighting, but I think that's alright. Rotom-Mow, great Levitate Pokemon. Terrafire is also great on it. Still avoid that ground weakness and add a few more resistances along with that as well. And the Toedscool, interesting one-pointer. Works similarly pretty much to the Toedscruel. Has Spore and Rage Powder, so that's nice for supportive options. I think and Terra Water is obviously a defensive option as well on the Toedscool.
Mm-hmm. And then Mismag, what do you think about the Plusle side of this team?
I'm so glad you asked. I see one Pokemon over there that really makes my heart sing. It's actually a Azumarill. I think Azumarill is great with the two Terra, with all three of these Terra captains actually. Azumarill can really put the squeeze on the fighting type mons that may want to bust up the Hydreigon. It can set up Belly Drum next to Toadschool. Yeah, Toadschool. So that's nice. So, but yes, I do see Mismag over there. I think it is a great option for this team, especially for the lower tier that it's in, because it gives you another ground immunity, which apparently is a running theme here. Is they have 3 mons with Levitate on that side.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have like the nice sand mode. It's just like something to kind of prep for. Not really too sure what Wugtrio's doing there. I guess just being kind of like another fast end mon, but that's probably the only one I'm kind of just like, maybe this could be something a little bit different.
Mm-hmm. And then Ted, why don't you go and talk about the minion side of this team?
Yeah. Obviously, Grimmsnarl, great supportive Pokemon, has double screens, can be a good offensive option with, Prankster bulk up, pair that up with the Spirit Break, lower those special attackers, which is nice. I think on this team as well. The Tauros, water form, good Intimidate user, has Aqua Jet as well for priority. Raging Bull, good stab option. Pair that up with the water type option with that as well. And then the Frostlass, which honestly, I think the Anger Point Frost Breath strat, I think is a little bit better than it was last generation, if not the same. Yeah, really strong combo with that. And then Rapska provides the Revival Blessing option. You can revive Grimmsnarl again once it goes down, bring up that Prankster screens up again, or the Tauros, and just continue to attack with that. So overall, nice solid options on the Minun side.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, I think they also have that nice trick room option there with the Rapska too and the Crabominable, which seems like a cool option. So it's kind of like the minion side seems to have a little bit of like a trick room or a slow mode, and then the Plusle side has a little bit more of a fast mode with that sand option. But I will say that one thing I'm a little concerned about for these teams is that when you look at all the Pokemon that are on the Plusle side, and you look at all their typing, Grass looks so good against those Pokemon. It's only Mismagius that's not actually weak to it at all, and so I think that that's something that's a little concerning. And then if you flip to the other side, the Minion Squad, the only Pokemon that on that side that resists fire is the Tauros. So I think that that's one concern I have for looking at these teams. Now, I will say the shared mons definitely like reduce that weakness between either grass or fire typing, but it's one thing that I have that's a little bit of a concern for these teams. What do you think about the team kind of as a overall standpoint, Miss Meg?
I was actually going to bring that up if you hadn't. It is very interesting how each half of their draft actually has like a pretty distinct weakness, and at least for the Plusle side, Azumarill can run Sap Sipper and be a little bit more supportive to kind of just knock one thing off there. But the fact that only the Terra captains are the ones that are allowed to terrestrialize does mean that like the 3 fire weak mons on the Minun side and the 3 grass weak mons, not counting Sap Sipper, on the Plusle side will not really have too much recourse to kind of deal with their weaknesses too well. So speed control is going to be, I think, really important for this team.
Yeah, I can definitely see that as well. Okay, let's go and look at our... this is actually the last team, since this was 8 teams together. So taking a look here at our Toxic Shadow Riders. Ted, what do you think about the shared Pokemon for this team?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Obviously, we had the double grass Terra captains with the Lilligant and the Torkoal. In addition with that Terra Ghost option on the Lilligant. I think both as a Terra captains are... I think both paired overall are really great for a shared captain. I would probably like to see something else as a shared captain, but I think those two together are really great. And then Impotent for the 1 point, I guess it's just there to fill the role for prankster screens, stuff like that. And again, another Terra Ghost option for a Terra for that.
Mm-hmm. And then, Mismag, what do you think about the Plusle side of this one?
I like the Pokemon on the Plusle side. I think having the Farigiraf, which is just an automatic no, you can't use priority, and a very solid Trick Room setter in its own right, is something that's really good, especially when you have slower Pokemon like Muck and Electros sort of on the back end. And of course, Torkoal itself. Palafin is really nice here. It's a little strange to see Palafin with Sun dominated captains, but I like it as just sort of like kind of in that fire, water, grass core as just a big, bulky threat that also needs to be prepped for. Just prep for the sun mode, but you also have to prep for like maybe they'll just let Palafin sort of work you over instead. Darkspun is also nice here. Like they do have Lava Plume on Torkoal, even though it's slow Lava Plume. Darkspun is usually more so fast, but it has a lot of other tools in its kit. So I'm a fan of the Plusle side. I think it complements the captains very nicely.
Mm-hmm. And then I think looking at the mid side, like I like that squad as well. Like you get fake tier support or fake out support from the Sneasel, which I think is a really good option. Being able to set up Trick Room with that Slowking, kind of similar to the Farigiraf on the Plusle side, really supports the Torkoal for that side of the Sun mode. And then of course, like you still have some fast options with Tailwind from Salamence to like speed up a couple of these other options. Maybe Haunter becomes a really terrifying special attacking threat with a little bit of speed control from that Salamence. And then, of course, Mudsdale's like this. That mon is so bulky. It is so hard to take out a Mudsdale. And like trying to figure out how you're going to beat this Sun mode as well as trying to be able to beat the Mudsdale, I think is going to be kind of tough for people to prep against this team. But Ted, what do you think about the team overall? How are you feeling about the squad?
Going back to the Mudsdale and the Sneasel, I think one of the things we probably are going to see is that beat up mode paired up with stamina. Get up those defense boosts is going to be nice. And then having also Ice Shard to proc weakness policy on it is going to be something that we're going to see a lot as well. So looking forward to that. But overall, as a team, I think I like it overall. Each supporting piece is well complemented by the offensive pieces. So yeah, overall, really good team.
Mm-hmm. And okay, so this is the last team that we're taking a look at before we're going to see what I've put together as what I think are the top teams from a power ranking standpoint. So before we ever get into looking at that, if you guys had to pick what you think is the top team out of all of these, and let's just go who you think has the top shared team overall. Which one would you put? Let's start with you, Mismag, as who do you think has the best shared team from what we've seen so far?
So like the best 3 Terra captains?
No, so I'm talking about like so let me actually talk about a little bit of how the team's structured before we jump into this, because actually I can clarify maybe my question a little bit more that way. So usually in leagues you play like a best of 3 in your games, and at the end of it you decide a winner, right? You played 3 games. Let's say you're each 1-1 at the end, and the last game decides who the winner is. Well, both coaches are doing that, so at the end of it, you could technically be tied. You could have one team has got 2 wins and a loss, and the other team has 2 wins and a loss, and so like it ends up being like a tie to one coach has won and one coach has won their matchup. So this one, we're actually counting it up as point totals. So I guess maybe I should clarify my question here a little bit, Miss Mag. I'm thinking which team do you think will have the highest point total at the end of the regular season?
Oh, okay, yeah, no, that clarifies your question a lot better. Which team has the highest point total over the course of the whole season?
Yep. So we're thinking who's going to win the most matches out of this? Because that's really what power rankings are, right? We want to see who we think has the highest power out of all these teams.
Honestly, if I had to only pick one team,
you only get one.
I think it would probably be the Palafins. Like, and I don't say that just because you're hosting the video, but I think compared to just about every other team there, your 13 mons collectively, I don't see too many like weak picks. Like I don't see too many unoptimal choices. Like every mon can kind of do something, like, contribute in some way. Whereas some teams that went a little top heavy might have like a low tier that is less than favorable, that won't be, getting much use. And some teams have some more glaring weaknesses, like we talked about with the typings of the Greenwich Galarians. But I think yours strikes a nice harmony between like, okay, my partner and I can use these 3 mons, and these are my 5 individual mons that can best support these 3 mons, and we just kind of go to work.
Mm-hmm. Okay, what do you think, Ted? Do you agree, or do you have some different ideas here?
Mm-hmm. I think it's a tie here between your team and the Bellatar Radiance. Um, I think overall, outside the Delibird, I think, and the Share Captains as well, I think all those bonds together round up a pretty well balanced team. Um, and then like going to your team with the Palafins, I think everything provides a solid role, whether it be like the base typing or a Terra Captain typing. So it's definitely a tie between those two teams, in my opinion.
Oh, very interesting. Okay, so y'all are about to see what I've put as the best for the Plusle, the best for the Minin, and then the best as the shared team. So, okay, let's go and take a look at that right now, and we'll get some reactions here. Mismag, what do you
Oh
think?
boy. All right. I could see. It's funny that Ted was saying it was kind of a close tie between um, your team, the Palafins, and Bella. I also had the Toxic Shadow Riders. It was really tough to choose between those three, to choose one team that I would say would get the most points, because I think those are the 3 strongest teams in this division. And I don't even really think it's a close race. I think between the Palafins, the Bella Tower Radiance, and the Toxic Shadow Riders, like, that's a nice little power trio up there, and the other teams do have a fair bit of work to do to kind of catch up there.
Mm-hmm. Okay, what do you think, Ted, about the list we have here?
Yeah, it's more so what I expected in a way. Just like what Miss Mag said, like the Palafins, the Bellatar Radiance, and the Shadow Riders. I think those three collectively are the top teams. And then the teams below that, even though they do have a ways to catch up to those three. I think we'll just have to see during the season if they can actually keep up with those squads.
Mm-hmm. One thing that we didn't mention yet is the Greenwich Galarians. So I had them as like a top 3 team for the Minin side and a top 4 team on the Plusle side, and then collectively as a top 3 team out of all of our teams. And that one, I like. We had a little bit of we had some criticism, right? We had some criticism for some of their individual mons, but I kind of liked putting them a little bit higher. As a shared squad, just because I think that their Terra captains negate some of those weaknesses in a way that I think are going to support the team overall. But I mean, there's no discounting, right? That we found some weaknesses on from a typing standpoint from those teams. But yeah, I don't know. How do you guys feel about seeing the Greenwich Galarians up there in these power rankings?
I mean, I agree. I think the Greenwich Galarians are a good dark horse team. Like, they would be my 4th ranked team, I would probably say, because I agree with you. Their Terra captains do help mitigate the individual drafts weaknesses a lot, compared to some other teams that there's less synergy between the captains and the individual mons. So yeah, I definitely think that there can be some refinements of the individual drafts, maybe as the season goes on and people make trades and they see something they like, they can kind of shift in and out. But I would say top 4. Top 4.
Okay, what do you think, Ted?
Yeah, I would agree with Miss Mag. Like, definitely a middle of the pack slash dark horse team. I think probably like the only way for them to actually move up, in my rankings personally, would probably have to see if like another team drops like a bond that they would like to cover up their weaknesses, or just they themselves going into the tier list and try to pick out certain types that would fill in the holes of their team and fix up those certain weaknesses. So yeah, we'll just have to see during the season.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so question for you before we wrap things up here. Are there any teams that did not make it into the either individual or the shared teams that you thought for sure would have been top 5 or top 3? Anything that stands out to you?
Mm, I think I think the only surprise for me personally is that the Bella Tower Radiance captains didn't make it into the top 3, but I think the margin between their captains and those of the Grand Scalarians is like so thin that like they just missed it.
How about you,
You
Ted?
know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Um, yeah, I think everything else is pretty much expected. I didn't really see any of the other teams making up on there, but I think everything else overall is pretty much perfect.
Mm-hmm. I think so. After having a conversation with you guys, I think the only thing that I would maybe change is the plusle side of things. I kind of want to put the I think it was the Drunken Dragonites. They had the NDD Arm Rouge combo, and I think I didn't put it in top 5, but I kind of think after having our conversation that they probably could be. You know, like they have pretty strong Terra captains, and then combined with that specific combo, I think makes them a little bit stronger maybe than one or two of these puzzle teams. But I don't know. Power rankings are so tough, man. It's so hard to decide who's the best team because so many of them always look so fantastic and it's so difficult to choose. But anyway, we're going to start to wrap up here. If you, the listener, the viewer, would like to share your thoughts on power rankings here, did we get it right? You know, do you agree? Do you think that we are the most terrible, like we are the worst analysis of Pokemon teams that you've ever seen, and you want to correct us down in the comments below? We are so happy to hear what you have to say. Go and drop comments. What do you think about these teams? Which team are you really excited to see, and all that stuff? And if you'd like to see some more of the TGR content, definitely check out the description below. There will be a link to the Discord server. There are a ton of coaches in this league that upload content, as well as the various other leagues that we have going on in TGR. If you'd like to check out some more of our different battles and our different leagues and whatnot, definitely go down there, check out the Discord link, and you'll be able to see a lot more of TGR content coming along. And with that, let's go ahead and sign off. You guys want to say bye before we close things off?
Yeah, I'll wanted to say, you know, the TGR model, GLHF, good luck, have fun to everybody competing. And, you know, just remember, like, power rankings are just our opinions. You know, they are not laws. They are not necessarily facts. Like, I'm sure this will light a fire under some of you. Use it to win the season.
Yeah. Since I'm not in this side of the division in Illumise, I just want to wish everybody good luck in the season. Play to your heart's content. You know, bring your A game every single week, and who knows, you may just make it into playoffs and into the finals. We just have to see.
And with that, we're going to go ahead and end things off here. Thanks for sticking around, everybody, and we'll catch you on the next one.